It's very difficult to see how things play out. And one of the difficult things to see into the future is the nature of jobs, the nature of work, the nature of pay, the nature of tax. There's so many known unknowns into the future that it does make it very difficult to invest in long-dated assets. But locations is absolutely everything when it comes to property, isn't it? You know, you look at that example that I put up there, you know, the nutmeg plantation versus the empty paddock on Manhattan Island. You know, it's just like, wow, you swapped a monopoly for a paddock, well, you know, full of people with bows and arrows, you know, dangerous place on the frontiers of the world. It's trying to see where it's all going and where are jobs going to be in the future and how are people going to work in the future. That then underpins the value of things like real estate, because people will pay rent or they'll buy them and they'll pay for them in proportion to what they can earn in proximity to them. And we know all around the world that everyone's going into cities, and city living is going to be part of that. And life in the future is working over a whole day, not 9 to 5. So proximity to work, rest and play is going to be a big part of the future. What I also know is, having gone to many cities around the world of more than 10 million people, you start to, you know, you can't help but look at, you know, what's an apartment worth here? What does it cost to live here? Now, go to the centre of Paris, first arrondissement or any of those arrondissements in the centre there, and have a look at what an apartment costs. Not on a pure price basis, they're all 1 million, 2 million euros. Or go to the centre of London and have a look at what apartments cost there, and you're into millions of pounds. But what do you get for that? How big is it? And so in real estate we look at rates per square metre, and we don't look at the actual cost of the property, the total cost. And Melbourne and Sydney are still half price relative to the rest of the world, places like New York, Paris and London. And Melbourne and Sydney are going to become the same size as those cities, and will have the same sort of densities and the same sort of values, because the earnings that you'll be able to make in Melbourne will be an equivalent, because the world is globalising, kind of whether we like it or not. So it's whether we can continue to attract and retain talented workers here in Melbourne and Sydney versus other locations such as Hong Kong, New York, London, Paris, Berlin, and so on. That's the big question. And so, you know, Andrew touched on it. You can't just be a local investor anymore. You need to be thinking globally. But I would have thought, when you look at cities of 10 million people, something like about 40% of their housing is apartments. And in Melbourne, we're at 5%. So that's probably the way it's going to go, and because in the end it's the only way people can actually afford to live and work in proximity in those cities.